Coming up on Dub Zone, put it all on red. Adelaide into third as they knock off the Roar. Don't write them off yet. Sydney FC start their finals push and the Knicks break Jets' hearts across the ditch. Welcome to Dub Zone. I'm Brianna Holden, and with me today we have two-time Ninja A-League champion Teresa Polias and our A-League's commentator Teo Pellizzeri. How are we both?
Great, it's good to be back.
Yeah, definitely. It's halfway point of the season. Things are finally starting to heat up at the top two.
They are. I'm enjoying the battle on the ladder. I think the top three in City, Victory and Adelaide are real premiership contenders, and then, you know, spots 4 to 6, I think they're up for grabs.
We're finally clearing teams playing each other for the first time and just starting to tick off teams meeting each other for the second time, and it's a great chance to track the progress. It still feels like there's so much to shake out though, and we learn something new every game.
Yeah, well, definitely. And what we learnt new this weekend is that Adelaide are really looking like a team to beat, a statement win over Brisbane, and Chelsea Dorber just absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I mean, they're really showing that the camaraderie's there. They've had a few fantastic wins against tough opposition in the last few rounds, and to do it against Brisbane, no less, that win actually helped them jump Brisbane on the ladder, so a huge win away from home as well.
Cracking game, and a real credit to how Chelsea Dorber's approached her rehab, given that she had a 5-month hip injury which required surgery in the off-season. First ever A-League women's goal for Tish Woods. But T, the broad point that I'm taking out of this match is that Adelaide scored 3 goals from only 4 shots on target, but they doubled Brisbane Roar's XG. And crucially, even though Brisbane had more possession and perhaps had largely the amount of the game on their terms, Adelaide 58% of duels, 65% win percentage in the air after I called them out for not being the greatest team in the air last week. Yeah. And they won both the tackle count and the interception count. So they went away and they won every indicator that they were up for the fight.
Well, it shows they're efficient, aren't they? They're ruthless in attack. They take their chances. That's what you want in a team. And they were without Fiona Wirtz as well. So fantastic win for them, and their confidence is just going to grow more and more, which is really scary.
Yeah, definitely. And Chelsea Dorber, I mean, her confidence has absolutely soared. Is she the in-form striker in the league at the moment?
I'd say she's one of, for sure. She's, getting on the score sheet in every game. So, yeah, that's definitely a credible statement there.
This is what Adelaide want, though, because Erin Healy has missed weeks with that persistent toe injury. Fiona Wirtz is now having a load management, but we'll see how quickly she comes back from this game that she's missed. Dorber's back from a long-term injury. But the more spot fires you have, the harder it is for the opponent to prepare and the harder it is to put them out when one player is having a good day. And this weekend, it was Dorber and Healy who both scored in the same game.
Yeah, I mean, that unpredictability is really hard to deal with, who they're going to put out there on any given match. And Healy was fantastic as well, coming in and getting on the score sheet.
And just some really fantastic goals as well. I think actually the goals of the round. But moving away from those, we did have a slight concern for Momo. There was a reckless tackle right before half-time. Was this just a yellow? I mean, she didn't appear in the second half.
I think the commentator in the match really explained it very well, and it was more about how close the defender was to Momo Hayashi in that challenge. But if you saw red for it, I wouldn't have argued that. It was a really hard challenge, and she couldn't, return to the field after the break, unfortunately, and hopefully she's okay.
I mean, it studs to the ankle very late going over the ball, and you've injured the player and put them out for the match. Sasaki's tackling technique is something that I have cited in the past.
Yes, definitely. As someone who's come up against her, yes. There are incidents there, yeah.
I think, it's a marginal call. Was Tamiki Yallop a week early saying that her players weren't protected? Was it almost counterproductive to complain about it last week when...
Well, I thought the exact same thing.
Was that trying to condition the referees to watch out for this sort of thing? Or was it just a week too early and now it's backfired in the form of the referee still isn't protecting the Raw players?
Well, I think if she had said that statement after that game, it was definitely more valid because there weren't any incidents like that against City in that match. But, for sure, I think if the red was shown, I would not have argued at all. I think, it was definitely a red cardable offence.
It's a weird timing for that sort of tackle as well. I mean, 10 seconds left in the match. It's just an odd one for her to be pulling out at that time.
Yeah, just a brain snap, I think. Sasaki hasn't had much game time either. So
First start of the season.
Yeah. So possibly, overzealous, trying to get out there and really prove herself. And it tends to happen as a player sometimes.
And now I guess the question is for Brisbane Roar, where does it leave them in the league at the moment? I mean, it's obviously they're still quite high up, but there has been 2 interesting performances in a row for them.
It has. I'm not sure what to say about Brisbane. I think they certainly peaked earlier than a few other teams that are now hot on their tails, and 2 losses in a row. They've dropped down a bit. Teo, what are you thinking?
They're creating chances, but Evie Popadinova, for a foreign striker in this league, does not finish them. I've said this a couple of weeks in a row. It's time to play Tene. It's Tene time. If Grace Kualamu, first year back from an ACL, is able to start most weeks, that's great. But you can't put too much pressure on a teenager.
Yeah.
Tene Morris, a few years older. I'm just thinking that the seniority here for the Brisbane Roar maybe is ruling over who's actually taking the chances in training and who's taking them out on the pitch.
Well, she's got that element of aggression out there, Popadinova, so perhaps, they like her presence out on the pitch as well.
It's one thing to have the presence, but it's another to actually put the ball in the back of the net, and it hasn't happened now since round 1.
Yeah, well, I guess the game's about scoring, so you've got a good point there.
Well, I think also Adelaide maybe was in her head a little bit as well, because there was this very interesting moment between her and Claudia Jenkins during the game. I mean, what did you guys make of this? Claudia Jenkins just saying, no, not my ball, you are not having it.
I mean, normally this ends in a push and shove, and Claudia Jenkins just said,
laughing.
see you later.
I
I absolutely love it. Look at the fun Claudia Jenkins is having out there, and great refereeing by Paige Malawa-Dooley as well, to come in and make sure it didn't boil over.
I think Popadinova was about to boil over there, but I think she just ended up laughing about it as well. But wholesome stuff from Jenkins there.
Very much so. All right, well, that moves Adelaide up to 3rd on the ladder. Sydney FC also made some moves this weekend. They obviously drew with Central Coast Mariners, but they also won against Canberra United. So let's take a look at both of those games. I guess we start with the Central Coast Mariners draw. What did you think of this match?
I thought they dominated in chances against Sydney. They certainly had plenty clear-cut chances that, they didn't convert. Sydney had good chances as well, and, in the end it could have gone either way, but I think Central Coast would have been, I guess, the more disappointed of the 2 teams.
So Sydney FC have picked up 4 points in their last 2 games, but they still have the worst pass accuracy in the league at 66%. They had 39% possession in this game. So they can't keep the ball when they have it, and they have it very rarely. What point are they trying to prove here? I know they're defiant, I know they're backing themselves, I know they're saying we're Sydney FC, we trust our methods. Well, I don't like the methods. The methods aren't entertaining. We've had another 0-0 draw. And I don't think there's enough evidence that they're pushing up the ladder to say that one midweek result against Canberra United is evidence that they should be so defiant about playing this style of football.
Look, they're moving up slowly, steadily. You've got to remember, I know it's halfway through the season, the style they played with a player like Courtney Vine last season, where you can be so direct with her because she's just got that blistering pace, that experience to make things happen, and I just don't think they've recovered from that. And I think their strikers at the moment are down on confidence. They're not taking their chances either. So all that plays into this, but they're slowly, steadily moving up. I don't think quick enough at this point, but, they're in 9th now. Anything can happen. I still think that 6th spot in particular is up for grabs.
I mean, I think you could see in this match, though, that frustrations were boiling over a little bit for Sydney FC. I mean, Tori Tumeth had probably the talking point of the match with this moment up against Brooke Nunn. I mean, what did you make of it? How would you have reacted if that was you?
Look, it was a niggling game. Both teams were giving it to each other, and I think this just showed, it just got to a bit of a boiling point here. I think the yellow card was fair, but I think Brooke Nunn, reacted to it pretty well. I think the ref reacted well to it. I just think that was the climate of the match at that point.
I mean, this is a classic you be the ref sort of scenario, though, because I'm sure in every referee around the country, never mind fans, are debating what the decision would have been here. What was yellow for Tumeth, nothing for Nunn? Was that the right call?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Tumeth was trying to do was when, you've got a quick free kick and someone stands in front and you blast it into them and they get a yellow, but it sort of backfired on her and, given that it didn't look good that she threw it at her head. So,
I think it's the head, that's caused the problem.
I think the ref did the right thing in this situation.
I mean, I see it as Brooke Nunn being maybe a little bit of a pest, standing in the way there deliberately. She knew what she was doing. But, I mean, in the end of the day, it was probably a yellow card.
And at the end of the day, you can throw it over a player, so she didn't really have to throw it at her.
All right, well, Sydney FC did also, of course, pick up a win during the week against Canberra United. That's the first time they've scored 2 goals in the first half. It was a 2-0 win. How did you feel watching this one? Because it did seem like Sydney of old, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing Princess Ibini in that 9 role. I think she's got different elements to what a Shay Connors has. She's got sort of more closer ball control in those areas, and it paid off for Sydney. I thought they completely dominated this game against Canberra United.
Canberra had some decent chances right at the end of the first half, and as unlikely as a comeback would have seemed, I can perhaps understand why they might have argued the case to come back and finish the game, but the ruling's been made. Under the rules, there was plenty of flexibility as to either calling the result at 2-0 or extending the match and completing it. But I think it's a fair outcome based on how dominant Sydney were in taking the 2-0 lead to begin with.
Agreed, Teo. And if you're Canberra United, like it was a run of games that were close together as well. I think you just take the hit, you move on, and they're on the up as well anyway.
Yeah, because what you've alluded to there, Teo, is the fact that the match was called off in the 54th minute because of lightning in the area. I mean, it was pretty intense across all of New South Wales, so it's no wonder that the players had to go inside, the play had to be cancelled. But as you've said, the ALP has made the decision that it was the 54th minute, APL rather, has made the decision that it was in the 54th minute. We've played the part of the second half, and therefore we're not going to reschedule it. So Sydney FC, that moves them up to 9th on the ladder, which, I mean, you guys have debated whether or not they're playing good football or if that's a good indication, but it is movement for the Sky Blues.
It is. It's slow, very slow, too slow in my opinion, but, it is movement upwards, and that's exactly what they need to build that confidence going forward.
Alrighty, well, it's time now to find out what's cooking with Nalin Mastou, thanks to Ninja.
Hi, I'm Nalin Mastou and welcome back to What's Cooking on Socials, brought to you by the Ninja Woodfire Outdoor Oven that can turn any space into an outdoor kitchen. Let's kick it off with what's unfolded in the Ninja A-League over the weekend. In the Sydney FC against Central Coast Mariners match, we saw the perfect example of how not to take a throw-in. Tori Tumeth got a little bit too keen, to say the least, as she pecked a ball at Brooke Nunn's head, but it's good to see that she took the funny side of it. Now, we also saw a bit of sideline antics happen in that Perth Glory game against Melbourne Victory at the home of the Matildas, as Glory head coach Stephen Peters seemed a little bit bothered by the tons of flyers that just kept coming his way, and someone actually threw him a bottle of Erika to help him out. Now, I'm not too sure about his spraying technique there, because it does look like he just sprayed it on his shirt and not directly on his skin, but nonetheless, we do hope that the flies left him alone. And finally, we saw Wellington Phoenix young gun Alyssa Wynnum be handed the captain's armband in the match against Newcastle Jets. But that wasn't all, because the 21-year-old also became just the second ever Knicks player after Mackenzie Barry to reach 50 appearances for the club. And it was her dad who presented her with a framed poster. And when we talk about iconic father and daughter moments, this has surely got to be up there. Now that's all for What's Cooking on Socials, brought to you by the Ninja Woodfire Outdoor Oven.
Well, thank you very much, Nalin. Now let's move on to Friday night's match, Western United and Melbourne City. A 1-1 draw, but I mean, Western United may feel like they could have come away with a win here, T.
Yeah, I thought they were fantastic in this game. They really took it to Melbourne City, and in the end I thought they should have won this match. Their aggression out there, their press was fantastic, they played direct, they were effective, they created a lot of chances, and I think they felt like, they were hard done by there.
Before we go in depth, goal or no goal? I was on the call for this, and I was as surprised as Milena Mirez when the goal was paid, I must admit.
I looked at it a lot, I couldn't see necessarily the goal.
Look, it's not... To me, it didn't look like it crossed the line, but the ref called it herself. I don't think the lineswoman sort of called that one.
Great assist from Lourdes Bosch for Holly McNamara for the equaliser. Here's the standout stat. Western United, 70 entries into the final third. Melbourne City, 48. So Melbourne City dominated possession, as they normally do. Western United only had 44% possession, and yet they were territorially up their end of the pitch far more than Melbourne City were. And that's what made this a fascinating tactical battle and also one of the most compelling and interesting games of the season, because Western United showed they didn't need the ball to have Melbourne City, at least under perceived pressure, pinned in their defensive half.
Well, it just goes to show that, when they had the ball, they were effective with it, and that definitely meets the eye test, because although they didn't have much possession, it looked like they did out there. They just created so many chances and they looked dominant.
The thing this is after the game, the players in the huddle waiting for Chloe Lagazzo to finish an interview. I've got to give credit to Kat Smith here. She spun the magnets. We know that Western United were on this win-loss pattern, and she was looking to break that, admittedly with a win, only ended up with a draw here. Brought back Sarah Eggersvik for the first time in a month, gave her a full game. First start for Adriana Taranto, played 60 minutes. Dahakis went into centre-back, having tried Cern there before her injury and then Miocic there before her injury. And it just seems as though they tested the depth of this squad, and maybe they are moving closer to a combination that can give them a bit more week-to-week reliability here.
Well, that's a bold move from her to do that, but, having Adriana Taranto out there, her aggression out there, her presence really uplifted her team. And if they keep performing like this, that's the key for them, to back it up and continue to do this. I think they'll be genuine title contenders.
I just want to quickly on Melbourne City. 13% of their passes this year are long passes. Last year it was 11.7. So for all the speculation about they're playing more long balls this season, I've crunched the numbers. It's only a 1% difference.
Okay, interesting.
But I do think that playing the ball out into open space with Holly McNamara on the pitch was their more or less only weapon until Bosch comes up with that very good assist at the end.
Yeah, I mean, she's just so devastating when she's out there, and she's combining really well with Bosch. And, in a game that they probably didn't deserve to win, once again, they save the points.
Still unbeaten, 12 games in a row.
Still unbeaten, yep.
All right, well, we can rely on you to crunch the numbers, of course, Teo. Now, the other question, of course, was Polias pulled at half-time. What did you make of that decision, and what does it say about where the team is at?
It's an interesting one for such a quality player. She's, not starting some games or being pulled off at half-time, so I'm not sure if there's, something happening there, but certainly, she's a player that needs to be playing. She's one of the best players in the competition, so perhaps she'd be starting to think, what her future holds.
I do wonder just how much of an impact that penalty that was saved on New Year's Eve has had on Rihanna Pollicina here. We've seen her against Brisbane Roar, was subbed on in stoppage time, almost like, hey, here's your match fee, play 2 minutes. And then maybe to try and get the confidence back up, they've started her here. We saw that little half chance there, playing as the number 9, leading the line. Yeah. And then Catherine Harvey was on, and then Holly McNamara replaced Pollicina at half-time. Briley Henry's coming back from concussion. They still have Amelia Murray, who can't make the bench, and Caitlin Carriage, who can't make the bench. I wonder, are Melbourne City now going to have real heat on here to decide, yes, Harvey's a targeted overseas recruit, Pollicina's a senior player who's scored us a heap of goals and has been extremely good for us, but I wonder how seriously are some of the youngsters knocking down the door to not even push players to the bench, but to even knock them out of the matchday squad altogether.
Well, they've got a surplus of talent there, and there must be a selection headache every week.
It's not a bad problem
but players,
to have.
They're not going to wait around. Pollicina, she's not going to be happy being on the bench. As much as she loves being at Melbourne City, she knows she should be playing. So it'll be interesting to see what the future does hold for a number of those players.
And of course, for Western United, we had Taranto back as well. What were your thoughts on that?
She was fantastic. Very aggressive out there, creative as well. Set up a lot of things. Got involved. Menace out there. Both twins are just great at that. So it was good, and just her presence out there as a leader, uplifted everyone as well.
I know there's a lot of Australians at FIFA. Someone at FIFA doing the ACL rehab study needs to find out every day of Adriana Taranto's recovery. She was immense, probably the best player on the pitch for the 60 minutes she did play, and that is 10 months and 2 days after tearing her ACL. There are players who...
And she's looking
players who've been out for more than 12 months and with still no estimated return. Every player is different.
Yes.
And
the extent to which the injury...
Both Taranto's sisters have suffered ACLs in their career, Mel and Adriana. Mel's some 5-6 years ago, Adriana's in the last 12 months. But I think if FIFA is serious about this study, they need to get on the phone to Western United and to Adriana Taranto and get every piece of intel, because this is as good as it's looked.
Yeah, and as you both said, she was immense, and Chloe Lagazzo, her captain, seemed to agree. Let's take a listen to what she thought of her return.
Look, I love Age to absolute bits. The amount of work that she's done to come back from her ACL in the amount of time that she's done, it's remarkable, and the effort that she's put onto the field is nonetheless, and it's inspiring. and you can see how electric the team is when she's here.
How do you feel as though the long-term plan to build your minutes is going?
To be honest, I don't really know. That's up to him and the physios at Melbourne City, so I just kind of go on whenever I'm called, and I'm just happy to be part of it. It's been a long time, so I'm just ecstatic to be on the field in any position, any time that I get. So yeah, I'm just happy to be back out there.
Holly McNamara there, finishing up talking about her increasing role with Melbourne City. Now let's take a look at Canberra United and Western Sydney Wanderers now. 1-0 to Canberra. They bounced back after that midweek loss now, I guess, to Sydney FC. Was it a good performance for them? I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game, but they still got the win.
No, I think Canberra dominated the game and did deserve the win against Western Sydney. I don't think Western Sydney threw enough at Canberra until later on in the game. They just didn't press them enough, but that goal from Christopherson was fantastic.
Canberra adjusted really well on the fly to losing Michelle Heyman during the warm-up. Maya Markovski came in like for like. We talked a lot about how do Markovski and Heyman play in the same team. Now we have our answer when it's straight swap one for the other. And the fact that they kept a clean sheet and scored the winning goal and really controlled the game is evidence that it didn't daunt them. Because it's a fairly young team, and they lose the leadership figure that they've got, the face of the club in the warm-up, and still find a way to win.
Well, it goes to show I almost forgot that had happened. So Markovski, she stepped in really well and combined with Stanic Floody as well. Canberra just got on with it.
Yeah, because it certainly can rattle a team. I mean, she was named on the starting 11. They went through it on the coverage as well, and then she just wasn't on the pitch. So, I mean, it's fantastic to see that they can handle those last-minute curveballs. What were your thoughts, though, on the omission of Sophie Harding from the starting lineup for the Wanderers? I mean, the Julie Dolan medal winner, and now we're here.
So we've talked about this once already this season, T, but what changes now is it's two different coaches. Two different coaches have seen fit to put the Dolan medalist on the bench. Before I give my theory, what did you make of this when you saw it happen again?
It's a head scratcher for me because I believe they needed her out there in order to press Canberra a bit more. And when she did come on, things started to change. Actually, when all their subs came on, they changed the game. The energy upped, basically, when they came on.
So, in the off-season, Sophie Harding had interest from overseas. She'd been in the Matildas squad. She was the Dolan medalist. Western Sydney Wanderers held firm, and they said, according to my sources at least, they didn't say this publicly, but we want a Macy Fraser level record outgoing transfer fee if Sophie Harding is to leave. In the space of 12 games, they have turned the Dolan medalist and a player they rate as a six-figure value into a player that's been benched by two coaches. I mean, it's hard to see a roadmap to Wanderers even matching last year's wooden spooner tally of 4 wins. We were here on show 1 of the season saying they haven't replaced the defensive ability or the leadership of Vicky Bruce, and they've filled gaps with really promising kids who can, and some of them will end up playing for the Matildas, but they're not going to remember this season as a happy one with Wanderers.
Alrighty, well, what wasn't a head scratcher was the entertainment value that we got out of Wellington this weekend. Wellington 3, Newcastle 2. It was a game of two halves, realistically, but let's start with Newcastle's first half performance. Sharon Gallagher showing us all what they miss when she isn't on the pitch, because these were two fantastic strikers goals.
They were, and it was such a bright start for Newcastle, and you thought after the hard run of results they've had, what a bounce back. But also I could sense in that game Wellington were never going to give up. They were always going to go at Newcastle, and it was always going to be an entertaining game.
This was a real display of Wellington's belief, though. Great assist by Lara Gooch, by the way. That's a New Zealand international that she's ripped the ball around there in Mackenzie Barry. So they're 2-0 down, and yet they've had 26 shots, 12 on target, 2.95 XG. They could have won this game a lot earlier than the 98th minute based on the quality and volume of chances that they created through the game. And that's a testament to how locked in they are to a game style and the trust they have in each other.
Yeah, but the issue is holding those leads and, keeping teams from scoring. That's been their issue all season, is the defensive side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, you were lucky that you were down 2-0 against maybe Newcastle, but there are other teams where if you're down 2-0 at half-time, that could be game over, regardless of what your attack is.
And I think Newcastle was second in the league for big chances. I mean, that's huge. It's just huge.
Now, half-time, 2 substitutions, Mania Elliott and Emma Main coming on. They seem to change the game as well. What did you make of those?
It's a very competitive 11, and we talk about teams with headaches and spoilt for choice. I don't think Wellington have decided on who's better playing as a sub and who's better playing as a starter. Minaya Elliott's making a pretty good case to start.
Yeah.
But it seems as though they have a lot of players whose combinations playing the ball to each other and understanding each other's runs mean that they probably need to be on the pitch at the same time. So I think, yes, it's good that they came back to win, but Bree makes a great point that you can't be dropping into a 2-0 hole most weeks against most teams.
Absolutely not.
Because there'll be some days where you have 26 shots and none of them will go in. Today, 3 of them went in, and the winner, it goes down as Minaya Elliott's goal direct from a corner.
It's always good to have a come-from-behind win here and there. It really boosts you. But that is the key for Paul Temple, finding what combinations are right out there.
And particularly at home as well. I mean, they've made Wellington their fortress, 4 straight wins at home now. How crucial is that going to be for this Nix team as we start to get towards the pointy end of the season, knowing that when they go home, I mean, they're comfortable?
It's really crucial in terms of finals because you've got your home and away leg. So that'll be interesting to see if they make the 6 and then how difficult it'll be for teams to travel there for that leg.
I think they would have watched like a game between Adelaide and Brisbane, maybe hoping for a draw just because they're right there on the cusp now. You finish top 4, you're guaranteed a home final.
That's right.
And you finish top 2, you're guaranteed the 2-legged semis. So
there is time.
I don't think Wellington should put any cap on their ambitions for how high they can climb up the table this season. And yes, we do know that a 2-legged semi-final involving a New Zealand leg, we were talking about it this time last season and they dropped away. They're not dropping away this season.
They're on the up.
It's a real possibility this time around.
Yeah, and they're incredibly exciting to watch. Now, I just want your quick thoughts as well on that final goal, the winner, Danielle Kenak. I mean, she had a good game, but definitely was out of position for that 3rd goal. How much will she be kicking herself?
Yeah, she will. She almost got through that game, and I thought she performed super the rest of the game. But yeah, definitely a bit of a brain snap there, and letting Wellington back in, she'd be definitely disappointed about that.
I think we've seen enough of both goalkeepers that Chidiac, who got injured in a midweek friendly, and that's why she'd been out for a couple of weeks since her most recent red card. I think you stick with her for now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's unfortunate to lose the game the way that they did, but a goalkeeper of Tiana Robertson's height's probably not getting any closer to that corner than Chidiac did. So I think stick with her for now. And hey, if there's one player that's maybe out to stick it to the dub zone paddle this season, well, maybe just me, but it's Danielle Kenak. And you know, I want her to keep clean sheets. I want Newcastle to go on a run. We know it's a great town that rallies behind their team, but give us some evidence. Come on, go on a good run for us.
Alrighty, well, let's head to the home of the Matildas now, where Kayla Morrison delivered the heroics.
Shallow clearance, and the ball volleyed in. Kayla Morrison was all on her own in the penalty area. And after a fairly tame header attempt to declare, it's been gifted to Morrison, who lashed it back in. Is that the best goal you've scored of the 11 in the league so far?
I don't know. No, I think I scored a better goal once, but that was pretty good because I think that was probably the first goal I've scored on Casey ever, even when we were training at Victory. So I'll take it.
Alrighty, a very happy Kayla Morrison there. I mean, that moves Victory up into 2nd. How important is she for this team?
Absolutely. She's, the leader. If you talk to anyone about her leadership, they'll tell you how important she is to that team in, not just organisational, but just her presence as well.
If you want to see more, jump on the A-League's website, because Morrison talked in that post-match interview about Alana Janchevsky playing out of position at left wing back and Laura Pickett in her first season at right back. And she's got, in her words, the telepathy down with Claudia Bunge. And so all the energy of the 2 centre-backs is spent educating the youngsters that are playing out wide. And that's the sort of thing that when this paperwork clears and Kayla Morrison is eligible for the Matildas,
that'll be interesting.
I think her ability to unify a group, to lead a group, to set an example and to be an educator is something that could be really priceless in terms of bringing, I know that when you step into that environment for the first time, doesn't matter how old you are, you're the new kid.
Yes, absolutely.
But I do think that she could also pass on her wisdom even more broadly than what she's already done to Melbourne Victory.
Time. And not to mention 11 goals as a centre-back. I
think it's 11 in 70 or 71 games. It's a great
really
strike
good.
rate.
That's fantastic. I remember Ellie Brush was similar as well, and it's just so handy to have a defender that can score goals.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, Perth had a few talking points in this match, but in particular, I mean, Tian McKenna's red card, this is an absolute coach killer, in my opinion. 2 yellows in the space of 5 minutes for fouls on the same player. I mean, It's just a frustrating one if you're her coach.
It is, and it's early in the match too, and they're thereabouts in this match. It's a good performance so far in the match, and yeah, it's one that really kills your team at that point.
I thought Perth were tactically good in this game, with two exceptions, the red card and the marking on the goal, but otherwise they came with a fairly organised game plan. Melbourne Victory made defensive substitutions in this game and managed, even 11 versus 10, their 1-0 win to the finish line, and Perth were the aggressors chasing them. Victory didn't do a great deal to try and kill it off with a second goal, even with a player advantage. The problem for Perth is it's now a calendar year and 20 consecutive matches since they last kept a clean sheet. Yeah. So for all the things we can praise Perth, we know they've got a horrendous injury list. We know that this team's, hasn't made finals in quite some time. So, historically they're pegging back from a long way in a deficit. But they've still got some problems they need to resolve.
They do, and I think they're slowly going about it. But yeah, it doesn't help when you do have key players that are out. And I do think they're managing well at this point, though.
Yeah, and also, McKenna had a few good opportunities before she got sent off as well, so it's sort of a double whammy for them. But also, Alex Chidiac, who was the player that was fouled, it was her 100th game, but she does have a knack for being fouled, the most fouled player in the league. I want to know, T, is that something that you think is a skill or is it a burden?
No, I think, look, she's genuinely being fouled, and it just goes to show the quality of player she is. She does get targeted out there. Not that people want to go and injure her, but they're trying to, break up the Melbourne Victory fluency there, and she's the player that creates things for Melbourne Victory. So
I could promise you, if you offered Chidiac to not have to suffer those hard fouls,
yeah, for sure,
she would definitely choose to not get fouled.
Yeah.
It's not.
She's a durable player.
She's not looking for them, and she cops it.
Yeah.
And I think Melbourne Victory would walk away from that game saying, that's actually what we want every week. That's how Alex Chidiac should be protected, even in her defensive half. First yellow card out of the pocket, and Perth Glory didn't heed the warning.
It's as simple as that, isn't it?
And especially given how crucial she is for this Melbourne Victory team, she really is just a key cog for them.
She is. She pulls all the strings in there and is a quality player, and they want her out there.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a look at where these matches leave us on the ladder, with Melbourne City still up top, undefeated, but Victory are climbing and catching them. Adelaide United, of course, leapfrog Brisbane Roar into third, and Sydney FC, well, they are moving slowly up the ladder, while Western Sydney seem to be rooted to the bottom there. What do you guys make of how things are shaping up at this point in the season?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I think the top three are genuine minor premiership contenders there. And fourth to sixth, up for grabs. It's very interesting. It's heating up.
I think that Brisbane, 5 defeats now, and they've got a plus 16 goal difference. We know on their day they're electric, but they almost need to take a leaf out of Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory's book and just plug the gaps and find ways to turn losses into draws, and that will get them back into the top 2 conversation.
All right, now let's take a look at next week's fixtures, starting with one a little bit later on tonight, Western United and Perth Glory, that one at 7 p.m. And then we move to the weekend's fixtures. Melbourne Victory against Sydney FC on Friday afternoon at 4:50 before we head to Western Sydney, where they'll be taking on Melbourne City, hoping to pick up a win for them over the currently undefeated side. And Adelaide United against Western United, that one at 5:30 AD or 5 p.m. local. And Newcastle Jets taking on Canberra United on Saturday. Then we've got Mariners against Wellington Phoenix Sunday, the 26th at 5 p.m. And of course, Perth Glory against Brisbane Roar on Sunday evening. All right, guys, what's your pick on that one?
I'm looking forward to the Mariners-Wellington battle.
I think late night Perth on Sunday night, Brisbane on the road, again looking to end this patchy run of form they're on, and Perth looking to make a statement. They are a better team at home. So I'm going to be watching right to the very final second of the weekend. All
right, some cracking fixtures there, but before we head off, let's find out what's happening on Total A-Leagues.
Coming up on Total A-Leagues, we talk about this incredible title race that's developing in the Isuzu Ute A-League, a massive big blue between Sydney and Melbourne Victory this weekend, and Brisbane Roar finally won a match. It should be another good one. Join Tommy Orr and me for Total A-Leagues on YouTube and aleagues.com.au.
All right, thanks, Vince, and thank you to the two of you, Teo and Teresa. It's been lovely once again.
Nice to see you, Bree.
All right, and we'll catch you next week for more Dub Zone action.